Hi folks, this is Pastor Sarah, and I have a Martinmas story for you. If you haven't heard of Martinmas, let me give you a little history. Martinmas is a festival that celebrates the life of Saint Martin of Tours. Saint Martin of Tours is from a place in France that I am not good at pronouncing. If you are better at pronouncing it, I would love for you to record a little video of yourself doing it so that I can learn how to pronounce it better. But Saint Martin was a knight, and he was a follower of Jesus. And one day, he was traveling on his horse through a forest. And in the forest, he saw someone who was homeless and very, very cold. And so Martin, who had a big cloak on, took his sword and he sliced his cloak in half. He knew that he still needed a cloak to be able to get to where he was going in the cold. But he didn't need the whole thing. And so he sliced his cloak in half and he gave part of it to this stranger that he met in the forest. Well, Martin continued on his way and got to where he was going, and that night he slept in a warm bed, and he had a dream. He had a dream that Jesus came to him, and Jesus was wearing that half a cloak that he had given to a stranger in the forest. And Jesus said, "Martin, thank you for keeping me warm." And Martin woke up and realized that by taking care of that stranger, he had encountered Jesus. He met Jesus in the forest. And the kindness that he showed to that stranger was a kindness that he was able to share with Jesus. Now, that experience that Martin had is very similar to something that Jesus taught his disciples about. The story that Jesus tells is from the 25th chapter of Matthew. And in it, Jesus talks about sort of the end of life. There aren't actually a whole lot of times that Jesus talks about life after death or like a judgment day, end of the world sort of situation. But this is one story where Jesus talks about that kind of scenario. And it's not entirely clear if Jesus is talking about something that will really happen or if it's something that Jesus is using as a symbol. But what Jesus says is that at the end of everything, there will be a king who invites all the nations and separates them into two groups. One group he calls the sheep, and one group he calls the goats. And to the group he calls the sheep, he says, "Thank you. Thank you so much for taking care of me when I was in prison and when I was thirsty and needed water and when I was hungry and had no food and when I didn't have any clothes and when I needed a safe place to sleep." And all of those people look to the king and they say, "We don't remember doing that. When did we help you?" And the king says, "Every time you did one of those things to anyone who was in need, you did that for me." And then the kingdom on the other side, the people that the king is calling the goats, the king says to them, "You never helped me. When I was in prison, you never visited. When I was thirsty, you didn't give me water. When I was hungry, you didn't feed me. When I needed a place to sleep, you didn't give me one." And all of those people look at the king and they say, "What? When did we do that? We don't remember you ever asking for help." And the king says, "Whenever you chose not to do those things for anyone who was in need, you didn't do that for me." There is both encouragement and a warning in that story, isn't there? The warning is for us not to lose sight of the needs of people around us, because every opportunity we have to take care of someone who is in need is a way that we can show our love for Jesus. The hope in that is that every small thing we do to take care of someone else has significance forever. It matters to God. It matters to the universe. So this month, our festival of Martinmas is a time when we want to look for ways that we can care for people who are in need. This would be a great conversation for you to have as a family. You can think about the people that you encounter or the needs that you are aware of in our city and in our world, and the things that you can do to help. One opportunity that I want you all to know about is an organization here in town called Warm Kids. Our Faith into Action team has already connected with this organization, and usually we would collect coats and boots and we would give those new coats and boots to this organization so that they could bring them to schools. And then any kids in Kalamazoo schools who needed a coat for the winter or good snow boots would get new ones. Maybe at your schools you've seen those. Maybe you've received them. Well, this year we are going to be giving money to that organization instead of buying the coats and boots ourselves. That way they can buy the coats and boots, and it's a little bit safer with all of the COVID germs that we want to be safe about. They also have a plan for how to get those coats and those boots to kids who need them, even though schools aren't going to be meeting in person. So if your family can send a donation to our church designated for coats and boots, then we can pass that money along to people in our city who need it. I hope that in the mail you got a packet about Martinmas. And one of the things in that packet is a piece of cardstock that has a coat and some boots and some mittens on it. If your family is able to make a donation, I hope that you will color in one of those items, a coat or the boots or the mittens, and cut it out of the paper and mail it back to church in that envelope that was included, so that we know that all of our church members have made these donations to our city. What I really want to do, since we won't have a mitten tree in the same way that we usually do at Christmas time, I want to be able to put all these colored pictures of coats and boots and mittens out on a table so that we can see all of the ways that we are helping people in need in Kalamazoo. So that's one thing that you can do for Martinmas this year. If you think of other ways to help people who are in need, I would love it if you could share those with me, and I'll pass them along on our church's Facebook page or talk about them in the kids' message or other things like that. There are so many ways that we can show our love for Jesus by taking care of people around us. And I hope that you will be inspired by the story of St. Martin and think of some great opportunities this season. Take care, everyone.